Hi, and thanks for downloading this, the 606th episode of the IVMV podcast. Well, the 2019 season has started, and the storylines have presented themselves immediately. Javier Baez, he picked up where he left off last year with quite a performance on opening day. That's one of the good storylines. Some of the bad storylines, well, it all centers on pitching. Despite the offense scoring 28 runs in 3 games, the Cubs lose 2 out of 3 to the Rangers, from Darvish and Hamels to the entire Cubs bullpen, I guess, except for, let's see, Cishek, Brock, and Rosario. Other than those guys, it was pretty ugly. So we'll talk about those topics and more, and we will preview the Braves series. I'm one of your co-hosts, and my name is Corey, and I am joined by the other 2 hosts of this podcast.
Hello, it's Andy.
And this is Kurt.
Okay, Kurt. I think everyone is expecting at least a certain type of scary stat, but you're taking us in a different direction.
Yeah, I don't want to kick you while you're down. Because, the certainly the bullpen stings a bit, but let's keep it positive. Although at the end, maybe we can come up with some negatives around it. But, the whole offseason, it seems like we talked about like offensive production being the key to this team improving and the offensive meltdown of last year. And, they've gotten off to a good start. And it was really no secret that if this lineup in the 2 through 5 spots are producing, they're going to score a ton of runs. And they did exactly that. Like you said, they scored 28 in the first 3 games, and 16 of those 28 runs were driven in by the 2 through 5 hitters, which is how it's supposed to go. And they collectively had 7 home runs, and the WRC plus for each guy, and we're going to call Schwarber the number 5 guy because he hit in that spot for the second 2 games, were Chris Bryant 152, Anthony Rizzo 148, Javi 210, with a special note that yesterday was 263. Today did not have quite as amazing of a day, but still a good day. And then Schwarber 234 WRC plus.
Yeah.
You just look at that by itself and you're thinking, yeah, this team is going to light up some pitching staffs, and they did. And then they lost 2 out of 3. So that burns, but I guess, got to take the positives where we can get them.
Yeah. So we are going to start, surprisingly, we're going to start this episode, continue the positivity, and then we're going to go off the deep end for a little bit. But to preview going off the deep end, Kurt, I'm sorry. I appreciate your positivity on the scary stat, but I'm going to give an alternative scary stat. And just some quick math here. I believe in the 3 games of this Rangers series, the Cubs bullpen gave up 8 walks, 16 hits, and 13 runs in 3 games.
Yeah, and I wonder too, like how many innings pitched, because a couple guys gave up most of that damage and didn't record an out.
Yeah, so, although they dipped into the bullpen early on Saturday night with Darvish's short appearance, but yeah. Okay.
So it looks like the Rangers scored 23 overall in the series. So 13 runs from the bullpen. Oh, man.
So not good. But
thanks.
We'll sit on that topic for 10 minutes or so. So
some cold water on my positive feelings.
So let's continue. Let's jump back into the positivity and talk about the offense, I guess. Andy, do you want me to talk about some overall stuff, or you want to dive in with some individual?
Maybe I can give some individual performances, and then we can broaden the scope out to the team as a whole.
Sure.
But obviously the Cubs scored a lot of runs, and the heart of the order really came through, like Kurt already noted. So Schwarber, I wanted to start with him. He was 5 for 12. He hit 2 home runs, drove in 2 runs. There were a couple situations where he didn't come through, but I like what I'm seeing early from him. He has retooled his stance a little bit, his approach, and it seems to be working early. I won't be able to tell, like I always try to copy batting stances when I was younger. I think the Rangers outfield camera angle is a little bit different than Wrigley Field. So I'm going to wait till we have a home game to really focus in on how you copy that new little crouch he has going on.
So you can get in the backyard and with your yellow wiffle ball bat and start practicing.
Yep. And then, hey, everybody, I'm going to go lefty on this one. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to see him get off to a hot start, and it looks like he's got it going on. Baez also did a bunch of damage in this series. He was 6 for 14 overall. He hit 2 homers, drove in 6, and he only struck out twice, which I like to see from him early on. And he looked lively in the field and just kind of looked locked in general. So at least we've got some of the key offensive guys looking like they're ready to go right out of spring training, which is last season there was so much bad weather and it was so cold and just everybody seemed to kind of match the weather, and kind of match the, I don't know, there's just all those postponements early on. And so I think for them to, be down in Texas and, then go to Atlanta and then to Milwaukee to start the season, I think is ideal. So they can actually play these games and not, I mean, even though it was cold in Texas, it wasn't Chicago. So,
Right.
but
It was Texas cold.
it's Texas cold. Yeah. I mean, the stars are still big and bright at night down there. So, Bryant was 4 for 13. He had 4 RBIs. I noted in game 1, which is the one that I watched, the other ones I listened to, that he looked dangerous at the plate. And, I think JD and Len also noted that as well. But I noted it first. And that's what the offense needs so badly. That would be an instant upgrade over last season. We talked about in the offseason how Bryant coming out this season and looking like his old self would be almost like having signed another free agent. So I think so far he kind of looks like that. I mean, he didn't get quite the results that Schwarber and Baez did, but he put together some great at bats and did damage when he could. So he also is wearing new glasses at night. So
yeah, my girls were very concerned and confused by that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love it, but I mean, if he's going to look good in just about anything, so
yeah,
whatever. And then I just wanted to point out Rizzo's performance too. He had some big hits here and there. He was 3 for 11, 3 RBIs, and he homered today. So, I mean, these are the guys that we're thinking if they all get off to a torrid start, I mean, this team is unbeatable. But then, here comes the pitching.
yeah.
But as a whole, I mean, the offense is off to a great start. I mean, they're putting their best foot forward for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And so kind of pulling back and looking at the offense as a whole, I mean, they are clicking on all cylinders right now, and they might need to be clicking on all cylinders in order to carry the pitching on their backs. And these are all small sample sizes, of course, but like you, Andy, and Kurt, you guys pointed out that the offense looks good. So the team stats at like the various statistic websites, they're updated daily. So if you look at them right now, they only include a couple of 2 Cubs games, but they scored, like we said, the combined 28 runs in this series. And so because of that, as you can imagine, they're in the top 2 or 3 of most offensive stat categories. 28 runs on 39 hits in those 3 games.
Dang.
Yeah, and they haven't struck out much. I don't know if you noticed
sounds like
that.
a sweep.
You would think.
Yeah, doesn't it?
It
28
should
runs?
be good enough for a sweep. Even a 4-game sweep. I think it's good enough for a 4-game sweep. But I don't know if you noticed, but they have not struck out much, and they're averaging 7 a game right now. I think it's 21 strikeouts through the 3 games, and so I don't know what that percentage is, but I think it's around 15%, and that is great for this team. I don't expect everything to continue throughout the season.
And most of the strikeouts came from Almora.
He had 3.
He had 3.
Yeah,
struck out 6 times over games 1 and 2.
Yeah, and then I know I know like Bodie and maybe I don't know. There were only a couple of people with multiple strikeouts in a game. And but like I don't expect that to continue throughout the season. I don't expect them to continue scoring 9 or 10 runs a game throughout the season. But,
I do. I mean, is that unrealistic?
Yeah. Well.
I mean, check out Schwarber's stance. I mean, and check out Bryant's glasses. I don't think that's unreasonable to expect 9 to 10 runs a game.
But I guess I just want it, but I am kind of obsessed on this bullpen and pitching situation right now. But I did want to stop and give credit to the offense for really setting the tone right away in this series, even game 1, and then continuing throughout the season, the series. It's a lot of what we saw in 2016. Things start fairly slow in the game, and then as soon as the Cubs, like pretty much throughout this series, when they got to the bottom of the order for the second time and the top of the order came up the third time, things really took off. And I think the Cubs really took advantage of a not very good Rangers bullpen in this series. So it was strange to see 2 bullpens that were just so disastrous, play a series like this. So yeah, I mean, after these series games, it's too early to look at individual players and get concerned about lower production than what would be expected. I just think it's a good sign that they scored 28 runs in 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, at least they did what they should have done offensively against the Rangers, which made this series, that much more infuriating. I mean, you just have to kind of have the minimum amount of quality given that sort of offensive production to sweep this series.
Yeah, and like you squeak out today's game, we're probably saying thank goodness the offense is good enough to carry this terrible pitching.
Right.
Versus now we're saying, can the offense carry this terrible pitching? Which of course it's too early to draw conclusions, but yeah, it's amazing how an inning or 2 can shift the conversation pretty early. And I imagine that weighs on them confidence wise. Like,
well, the offense has to be irritated. I mean, I would think that's what my 12-year-old daughter was watching this, and she's like, I bet the offense is pretty mad. I was like, yeah, I would be. But
I mean, they did all they could.
Right. Yeah.
And then some.
Yeah. But since we can like enjoy the small sample size period of this season, I did want to say that I there's one thing that I really enjoy about small sample sizes, and I'm happy that we got to witness it. I haven't looked after today's game because I'm afraid that it's been ruined, but I enjoy when a batter's batting average is higher than their OBP. And that happened with Jason Hayward before today's game. So in the first 2 games, his batting average was 250 and his OBP was 222. And I don't know, I just get a kick. And obviously the reason for that is sacrifices don't count against your batting average, but they are included in your OBP. But
he delivered some big hits in this. I didn't mention him, in my individual performances, but he's another player where, if he can get somewhat locked in on, offensively and at the plate, then, that's just such a bonus.
Yeah. So what, he had 2 singles today, I think. He came up with, oh man, today's game just, I'm struggling to remember details because I was so angry throughout the game. But he came up with he had it was in like the 8th inning, I think, and he had somebody on second and with like 1 out and popped up, or I don't know, it was something where it was like, oh, just a base hit would have been so nice. But
yeah, well, he did deliver. He delivered in several situations over the course of the series. He drove at least 1 run in every game. So
yeah.
So I mean that's good.
Right. Yeah.
That's what that's what the Cubs need him to do. It's anything beyond being a plus glove in the field is such a bonus for Hayward.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And he saved a run today, which ultimately didn't matter. But I don't know if you guys noticed that, but he had a really good defensive play where he cut off a hit in the gap and kind of saved a run. But so can we be done with positivity now?
Yeah, I mean, because this has been surprisingly bright in tone given what happened in this series so far.
Yeah, and I would like to dedicate the rest of the episode to negativity. I don't have a negative.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Right. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Here's the negativity sound effect.
Oh, yeah.
So now we've opened the door, and we can walk into the realm of negativity. I don't even know where to start. I have no idea where to start.
The sync realm of negativity. Should that be the podcast episode title?
I
think
so.
we found it.
The realm of
you
negativity.
You could just go in, timeline order. I mean, game 1 was great, whatever, and then we just start with game 2. And where do you want to talk about the oddness of Quintana, or do you want to talk about the meltdown of Edwards?
Okay, let me first off. I am keeping an eye on the people chatting and leaving comments. And most of them are legit questions. So I'm going to interrupt this before we get into the negativity to read a not legit question. But Beth wants to know, Kurt, if you
how dare you? That's my wife. How dare you call her question illegitimate?
If we have the same glasses frames.
They
are pretty similar. Are you a Warby Parker customer?
They are, but mine are blue and yours are dark.
Oh, my last
because I like to
blue.
imagine you guys holding hands going into the store together to get these frames.
Well,
we don't go to the Warby
that's where
Parker store.
So far. You don't go to a store.
Come on.
Andrew, what are you, 90?
You don't go to a brick and mortar store to get those frames?
They do have one now, but nobody goes to
No, we each made our Warby
Parker.
Parker.
BOGO together. Chris in the chat says they got in Lens Crafters, buy one, get one.
Yeah, we should do that.
We got on warbyparker.com and made our 5 selections. And then when they came in the mail, we got on FaceTime and tried them out. And so,
I might get just like the fashion glasses with no prescription with the same frame. Just
you can get those at Warby Parker too without prescription.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man, what if we all had the same ones? That'd be cool.
Okay. Now back to negativity. Now we're back into the realm of negativity.
I've got the Orson model.
Oh, mine are.
Citizen Kane over here. Look at that camera angle. I mean, that's a bold choice to put him right in the center of the frame.
Mine are Crane.
Oh,
so
the Crane. You got the Crane Kennys.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Contractually obligated to keep them.
Oh man. Oh, thank you for that. I needed that joke. Oh man, that's for all of you that read that long Deadspin article. Okay, so here's how I want to start this bullpen conversation. This is no surprise. The bullpen performing like this is no surprise, and that is why we gave ownership and the front office a bad offseason grade just a few weeks ago. And we talked about the bullpen, and we knew that there were issues with the bullpen. We knew the bullpen needed to be upgraded, and those moves weren't made for whatever reason. And I think, everybody maybe has a different take on what that reason is. But it doesn't matter at this point, because now we're to the point where if they do need to upgrade the bullpen, it's going to be at the expense of the team in the future. And that is really disappointing. That's frustrating for me, because most fans saw that the bullpen sticking the way it was, in the small moves that they made in the bullpen were probably not going to be enough. And instead of making those upgrades through money, it's now those need to be made through future potential in the minor leagues, and I don't know, or at the major league level.
Short leash too with the guys. I mean, that ended up going to Iowa. After spring training. I mean, Junichi Tazawa, for example. If like some of these players continue to just crap the bed, then let's try some other options.
Right. Yeah. And guess what? Craig Kimbrell is still out there, and so pay him, and let's and I don't know that like Craig Kimbrell keeps what we saw this weekend from happening. It probably doesn't completely, but it's starting to address these things, because I don't really feel that like what we have seen from Pedro Strop so far is exactly what Pedro Strop is going to be like this season. I don't think what we saw from Carl Edwards Jr. on Saturday night is what we can expect from him for the rest of this season. But the point
man,
is,
what a brutal tone to set with your closer giving up, a run in each of his appearances in this series.
Yeah.
That's so rough. I mean, these guys have to come out, and especially against a team like the Rangers, and shut this team down.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys find it strange that I don't know, I guess maybe the case could be made that the best Cubs reliever right now is Quintana?
Oh man, I was so surprised to see him. I know. Given the off day, they had options, but I just kind of figured that Montgomery or Chatwood, and would be, kind of the long relief options. And maybe it's because of the fact that they were focused on. I don't know. They're just not stretched out
Montgomery,
yet.
I think Montgomery isn't completely stretched out yet because he had the shoulder tightness or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he would have been the guy if he were ready for that. But
well, and I think it made sense in hindsight after that. We kind of got the explanations that pointed out that Quintana hasn't done well against the Braves. He has pitched well against the Brewers, so that kind of lines him up for that series. And I mean, it did make sense. And I mean,
well, and it worked until
right, and
until it didn't.
Right,
until it didn't.
But and as far as so as so I was at the soccer match in Cincinnati, and on our way back, I flipped on at bat, and it was like Quintana was pitching. I was like, what in the world what did I miss?
Right there, you knew something went wrong.
Something is weird.
You thought his arm literally fell off his body. Oh, I guess that's the only explanation for that.
Yeah, it was strange. So then I was like, well, that's not good. And then I was like, I'm trying to play out the scenario in my head once I found out kind of what was happening. And I just kind of thought you know what? I wonder if this isn't Madden just basically giving ownership in the front office the finger and saying, well, you decided not to give me the bullpen pieces I need, so I'm just going to I'll create them on my own, and I'll do this. And then once the real reasoning was shared, I was like, oh yeah, that makes more sense than imagined.
that makes more sense than a manager.
He's giving him the finger. Oh, okay.
That's why I'm not working for the Athletic, guys. One of the many reasons.
That's why we can keep the marginal analysis tagline around.
That's right.
I like this in the chat. Frank says, "Why did you start game 2? Didn't make sense. He's coming back from an injury season. Start him 5. Let him work his way back, and don't rush it." I don't mind that comment.
Yeah.
Well, don't you think that there's some level of he's comfortable there because he pitched there, and he knows that ballpark, he knows how to pitch there. I think they thought he was the number 2 guy, but I suppose there's something to be said for that too.
I mean, maybe they thought hey, putting him out there game 2 is sending a message. This is what we expect from you. This is the level of quality we expect from you.
Showing,
and we know that you want a chance to shine against your former team.
Right, and
we're just gonna run all the previous Rangers pitchers out there and go with that.
But I mean, given him his kind of history last season, especially of being a little bit of a basket case, I mean, maybe giving him a start against the Rangers wasn't a good idea in hindsight.
Right. I think in hindsight, you're right. And Tommy Hotovy said that Darvish was too amped up for his first game against his former teammates and playing in the ballpark that he used to pitch in. And I guess if you want to, in the Yu Darvish situation, look for that silver lining, I think it's that there was a similar report out of Mesa after his first spring training appearance this year. Basically that he was just too hyped up and too amped and wasn't very effective and walked. I don't remember. He maybe only pitched 2 innings or an inning and a third or something like that. It was a short appearance, obviously, his first of the spring, and I think he walked 4. So and that's what we saw in this game was that a lot of walks. And so
they flashed the graphic up with his numbers, during his time with the Rangers, and it's just fantastic numbers. It's I have no reason to think that he couldn't come close to matching those numbers with the Cubs too. There's no reason. His stuff is great still.
Unless it's sorry.
Is it between the ears?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Unless
Well,
it's a mental thing that something happened in L.A.
well, but I mean, I honestly, like, I have no idea what to expect from you, Darvish, from here on out. I have no clue. But I think if what Hadavi said is correct, and that is something that we've already seen this year in spring training, where if he is just too amped up, then he doesn't pitch well. Well, first off, like, okay, well, then that tells me that he may settle into things later. That also concerns me for the playoffs, though.
Oh.
If you have a pitcher who, when he's amped up and when he's excited, he doesn't pitch very well, that's kind of concerning. And hopefully they can maybe help him figure that out if that would present itself in the postseason. But
man, it was just frustrating because he struck out the first two batters right in his start, and it looked like it was going to be such an auspicious beginning for him, and then it went off the rails. But I still believe in him. I'm a fan of you, Darvish, and I want him to succeed, and I think he will be better. I really do.
Yeah.
Well, I think if he can stay healthy, then I have no reason to believe he won't be good. But I think that's the key. Stay healthy, and then we can forget this start, hopefully.
Right. And I think that you, Darvish, I think like over his years with the Cubs, I think we're going to see like kind of an interesting transformation. And I'm not sure exactly when that transformation is going to happen, but he's going to need to at some point change who he is as a pitcher, because he's a strikeout pitcher. And at some point you lose velocity, and then you have to be more willing to pitch to contact to get those outs. You can't just simply rely on strikeouts. I don't think he's to that point yet, though. And
JD was talking about that. He was saying, what if he does, try to, I don't know, paint the bottom of the zone and sort of pitch his fastball to contact more to get the pitch count down a little bit and see if that does anything for him.
Yeah, and I don't think right now is the best time to try to have that philosophical change to how you pitch, because I think he's still young enough and he still has the stuff to get those strikeouts, and especially like coming off of the last year, since he signed with the Cubs. I just think like right now the key is for him to find his groove. Needs to get his groove back, and then like and do it in the way that he used to do it, not try to do it in this different way. So,
but man, I mean, if he could just string some starts together of at least 6 innings too, though. I mean, like, I know he's a strikeout pitcher, but he's got to give them more length too.
Yeah. And so I'm concerned about you, Darvish. I'm still not ready to write him off, especially like we saw a lot of really good stuff from him in the spring. And I don't think that was necessarily like just like tuning up on AAA or AA hitters. I think I think it's just too early in this season to say like, oh, yep, see, he's a bust, because he is back from the injury. He says he feels good. And these types of starts do happen. I mean, we've seen John Lester we've seen all pitchers have these types of starts. You just didn't want to see it in the first one of this season, when he really needs to kind of like set the tone for what what fans can expect from him, what the Cubs can expect from him. And it was just like, oh boy. So I'm like, I am really looking forward to his next start, which is Thursday, I think. So I'm really interested in seeing what we get from him on Thursday, because
and boy, how about Tommy Hadavi's job, like right off the bat? It's like, dude, your plate is full. And so, trial by fire, sink or swim, buddy. Let's see what you can do.
They also mentioned there was a slight drop in velocity, I guess. Again, I missed Darvish's 2 innings or 7 outs, whatever it was. I don't know, because I was at that soccer match in Cincinnati, and so I missed the beginning of the game. But they said that there was a tight strike zone that made things tough. They I think the like drop in
he didn't get many borderline calls, but I mean, still.
Yeah. And I think that the drop in velocity could be explained by the cold weather. I think that could play a role. Although I have to say, I did enjoy all of the chatter on Twitter and the broadcast itself about how cold it was in Arlington. And I had just in that soccer match I went to, I had experienced a torrential downpour for I don't know, the whole night. And so we marched, from the meeting place to the stadium, and from the march to the kickoff to the soccer game, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. And so and I felt so Lauren met us there. She lives outside Cincinnati, and she met us, and yeah, she was down to a short sleeve shirt because everything else was so drenched when we found a dry place to stand. And
Dang.
she wouldn't take my hoodie.
Brutal.
Not that it was dry. It was actually still wet too. So, but
that sounds miserable.
So anyway, I found that kind of funny that like, oh, they're talking about how cold it is. And I'm like, well, it's not raining. Oh, and it's 50 degrees. That sounds like paradise right now.
I love that on the broadcast they showed, I don't know if it was Elvis Andrus who was full like mask over his face, and right when they showed that shot, Lena's like, it's 50 degrees right now.
No, they put it
on
this. They put it up on underneath the score. It said temperature 50 degrees, like on the shot of him.
He looks like he's about to do the Iditarod dog race, like dog sled race. Like, let's get this diphtheria medicine to Nome, Alaska. It's like freaking 50 degrees in the ballpark. I loved it. I thought that was hilarious.
Now, I'm sure that anybody who was there would say like, no, it was, because 50 degrees, it can be cold. And I think it was windy. So yeah, a blustery. I've been in Wrigley when it was 50 degrees and windy.
Even JD like said it with the feels like. He mentioned like it feels like though, like
feels like 48.
I mean, with wind chill, it's like 46 easily. Oh man.
But okay, so I don't really have anything else.
Well,
to say about
we covered you. We didn't really go super in depth on the bullpen meltdowns, other than the general feelings around it. I don't think we need to go into the.
What about like Edwards Jr.?
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Well, I guess the numbers are what they are. I mean, do you guys feel like this is more of the same, or just another bad outing? I mean, do you feel the same about Edwards as you do about Darvish, that you expect better?
Go ahead, Andy.
I want to expect better. I'm a fan of him, and I hope he gets it figured out. But now the sample size of him coming into games and just really struggling to get his job done is starting to build, and I feel like that the weight of all that's starting to gain some momentum, and I hope he can fight against that. But as of right now, I'm a big fan of him, but I don't have much confidence in.
I guess I think he faced 4 batters and all of them reached safely. That's troubling. Regardless of the weather, that's troubling. I don't know. I just I feel like I'm trying to look. I'm kind of curious. I'm having trouble finding it right now. Well, Kurt, you jump in. I'm trying to find something.
Well, it's tough because you remember the bad stuff, and now it's sort of like, now we have like bad late season performance. Now we have bad early season performance, but at the same time, the rational brain is like, well, you can't take one performance on the whatever second day of the season and write him off. But I think it compounds itself because, like we talked about, the offense was so good, and then it's so easy to pin that specifically on him as the sort of start of the meltdown, even though he's protecting a 1-run lead. But
I just hope that like next time he gets a chance that he comes in and just shows that he has command and that he can get the job done.
Yeah, he needs it for himself for sure. I mean, but he's one of those guys that so often, like, his stuff is so incredible, it's hard to understand how he can't get it done. Even we've seen him be wild and still be effective.
Yeah.
And stuff like this happens, and it's tough. But I'm with Andy though. Like, I really like the guy, and I want him to pull it around. But the more that times this happens, the more it builds in your brain about like, oh, I can't trust him.
Yeah, although I feel like those periods of distrust stand out. I think like that's what you remember.
Sure.
And that's the case with every reliever. you remember when they blow it, when they look bad. I mean, there are people that think that Pedro
Right.
Strop is a terrible reliever.
Well, do you guys yeah, terrible. Yeah, I mean, do you guys remember how Kinsler did in his appearance? No, we don't remember it in this
It's
series
clean.
because it was clean.
Right.
But had he, given up some runs, then we would be talking about him right now. So that's a good point, Corey. Just kind of really focusing in on Carl just because of the nature of how his
role,
very short appearance went.
Right. Yeah. And I wasn't able to find what I was looking for, but in the last 2 years, his ERA plus was 146 and 166. Now I know that relievers, their ERA plus tends to be a little higher, and so that's what I was trying to figure out, like what is normal for a pitcher, that fills that role. But I mean, I don't. I'm not really going to let that appearance kind of tarnish what I think about or taint what I think about Carl Edwards Jr. because I just want to see more, because I've seen him look so dominant, and I don't want this to be like what I remember really, because and I mean, there is a degree of, well, maybe he's just not going to be reliable consistently. And what is that reliable consistently? I don't know. I guess I haven't given as much thought. I've been like, there are so many other things that were in the forefront of my mind when thinking about the bullpen. But I mean, it was troubling. You face 4 guys, you don't get any of them out in a close game. That is troubling. But I haven't lost faith in him. I just, kind of like Darvish, like I just want to see what's next. How do they recover from this? And I think that tells us a lot.
Yeah, and then maybe Edwards too, for me particularly, like he could be a victim of like his ceiling, where when he came in, you heard all about the stuff, and it really is that good. Like there was potential there that he could be a lockdown closer at some point, and he is still young.
True.
So he's got some time, but I think maybe when those thoughts creep into your head and then you see him go out there and in a late close situation and not get it done, I suppose it feeds that a little bit more, that maybe he's not that guy, he won't ever be that guy because you thought he could be.
Well, remember though, like when he was in the minors, I mean, there was doubt whether or not he would even make it to the major league team because of control. So, I mean, I think we've always known, and he really did get things, figured out enough to make it to the Cubs and to be a reliable or pretty reliable and effective reliever.
That's a good point. I mean, he's overcome pretty long odds already to get where he is. So he has to have some level of, just kind of determination, belief in himself, all that stuff. And there's no reason to think that can't get him to where he believes he can be performance-wise.
Yeah. One of my concerns with Carl Edwards Jr. is I think that he seems like he kind of you can see how his performances affect him. You can see it on his face. I mean, you'll remember, wasn't in the playoffs in like 2017 when he basically had to like shut down his Twitter and Instagram because people were like bombarding him with negativity. And it feels like he's the type of guy that like could be affected by that type of stuff. And, whether the majority of fans, do those things or not, send those messages and all that kind of stuff. I just think that like, and we've had this conversation before about like social media is interesting because it does give you insight into players' lives, their personal lives, and their baseball lives that like we've never had that access before, but some fans don't really handle that with what am I trying to say? They don't handle that with responsibly, I guess. And so I hope that he's somebody that, I just hope that it does turn around for him, because I think if it seems like a few really bad performances could stretch out into a longer period, just because I think it might be tougher for him to overcome those things. And, I think most of us would probably be the same way. I think it's, the tough guy sports fan would be like, oh, well, you're paid to do it, so get over it. And, do your
Mhm.
job, be a man, stuff like that. And it's like,
But still, I mean, you think about like it seems like the Cubs have a lot of players, a lot of pitchers right now where, their performances kind of inform their next performance. Whereas I don't feel like they have a lot of like the Wade Davis types where, they just
right,
compartmentalize
yeah.
and seem relatively unaffected by it all. And
I feel like Morrow is probably one of those guys.
who is?
Morrow, probably.
Yeah, I think he probably is. I think they can't get him back soon enough, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But at the
But I
same
think
time, like we as fans enjoy that emotional. We enjoy seeing emotion from baseball players, and I think that like the good comes with the bad with those emotions. And I mean,
Oh yeah, I'd rather watch Pedro Strop in a big moment than Wade Davis.
yeah,
So
right, yeah, and I mean, like, just personally, if in my work, if I get some sort of negative feedback or something like that, it ruins my day, and it weighs on my mind. And so I feel like I can't really judge somebody for carrying those things. And I think if someone
yeah,
was there to like just push and prod at me on social media when I make a mistake or I've done, haven't been perfect at something, like,
it's
I don't
hard to
know, it affects
imagine.
you,
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
It's truly hard to imagine and really put yourself in the shoes of athletes like this. But
yeah.
Yeah, and part of my sort of like ceiling conversation too was the fact that like 2016 playoffs, he was incredible. And I think that sort of elevates guys like the Schwarber incidents, like, oh, we should expect Schwarber to hit 450 and get on base every time, right? Because
Right.
he did it in the World Series, and then uh, you know Edwards too. Like he was so good in 16, and then 17 kind of fell apart. So I don't know. I think, yeah, it's so easy for your expectations to get skewed based on a few performances. So
Yeah. I don't know about anybody listening to us right now, but like I'm way more calm right now than I was the entire evening. So, and we haven't gotten into Sunday's game yet. So,
yeah, well, your text messages to us indicated that you were in something of a mood.
I was in a mood. I don't even, whatever. I again, like,
not
I'm
calm.
not
Calmer than you. Calmer than you are.
I'm not even. I think this is how I can sum up like my overall mood with the bullpen, and especially with Sunday's game, is that I'm so frustrated that the front office and ownership didn't do what they needed to do in this offseason. And really, I don't think that the bullpen is going to be this ineffective the entire season. I mean, if it is, oh boy, it is going to be a long season.
The fact that it was the Rangers, like,
right,
does definitely give me a little bit of pause, like thinking about how it will be going forward.
Or if they would have, it maybe wouldn't have made a difference. But perhaps if the offense hadn't done its job, and you could say, well, the bullpen, gave up runs, but the offense didn't really do their part either. I mean, we had a lot of those conversations in 2018 or 2017 and 2018, but this was just like glaring. Like, no, it was the bullpen. And you can be angry at the individual pitchers. That's not really the direction I tend to go, because I don't believe that any of them are out there not trying their hardest. I'm more upset with the people responsible for constructing the bullpen, constructing the roster, and I just feel like they've dropped the ball. And I think this series couldn't have gone any worse for ownership in the front office in regards to the bullpen and what they did or didn't do in the offseason, because they probably thought, I think in a way they probably thought, well, hey, if this offense performs like they should, then that maybe won't matter quite so much. But the offense produced in a extremely positive way, and they still lost 2 out of 3. And it's just I don't know. I really don't know what to say. I mean, it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, and it only if we can project that far ahead, like bullpens dominate the playoffs now. Like that's the trend. And even if they are able to limp through this season with what they have, even the guys who are off, out right now on injury and are going to be back full strength, like you need those lockdown guys. And I think maybe Morrow's that guy. Cishek could be, and Strope. And so, yeah, I don't know. There are more unanswered questions. And I think that's what makes us all uncomfortable.
Well, and I kind of like tonight I was thinking ahead and I was like, oh my gosh, like if this is how the bullpen performs, like next weekend series in Milwaukee is going to be brutal because they
it's going to be
glaringly,
it's such a contrast to their bullpen.
Right.
Like they're just going to.
Well, and I mean, you think about the competition of the Rangers, and then they go to the Braves, and then the Brewers. I mean, wow. I mean, but it's going to be a lot more challenging to do better,
right? I mean, look at what the, I really do think. I know in the law, if I step back and look at it, I disagree with what I'm about to say, but I do feel that this Rangers.
But I'm going to say it, by God, it's in the shoot. I'm going to fire it off.
I think that the series against the Brewers matters because I think that, like I said, I think it's important to set the tone, and I think that's what the front office has wanted. I think they have wanted that done in April, early in the season, set the tone, and I think that like if you give the Brewers anything to stand on. They've got the momentum right now based on last season. They have the momentum based on just September of last season. And
and not to mention they just handled the Cardinals.
Exactly.
And so if they get, handle the Cardinals, handle the Cubs, boom, that's
the division.
Not
that's the division, but I mean that's what they need to do throughout the course of the season to win the division, and they will have proven that they can do that. And how did they beat the Cardinals? They beat them with like late inning heroics, and it's like this is like setting up perfect. Like I don't know. And they have an amazing bullpen to keep the Cubs from doing that, which is what they did in September. So
well, maybe it's setting the Cubs bullpen up for some late inning heroics. Oh man.
But I don't know. It's probably not going to be great to say something super positive, but I do think when everyone's healthy in this bullpen, I don't think it looks quite as bad. But because the free agent signings they did get, they aren't even there. So, well, I guess Brock is, but
I just don't think it's enough.
I don't either. And I think there's something to be said too about like, oh, you're not going to get Bryce Harper. Okay, that's fine. Maybe we can accept that. But why didn't you go get the Kinsler type, or I'm sorry, the Kimbrel type? And it's about setting a tone as well. Mm-hmm. And you're saying like we've got the offense and we think we have the starting pitching. Let's lock down this bullpen. And they definitely didn't do that. They added role player guys.
Right. Yeah. I guess I don't have anything else to say about the bullpen. I think what we've said is, or at least what I've said is all I have to say. I don't know.
Maybe they'll dominate the next series and we can forget about it for 3 days.
Yeah, and I think that's entirely possible for the bullpen to pitch well for the next stretch. I don't think it's impossible. I just think that like now that doubt is there more, and I think any doubt that we did have, it was like validated, and I don't know. It's going to be a long season, I think. So, all right. Well, I want to talk about ESPN Plus for a second. If you've cut the cord and you want access to sports, ESPN Plus is a must-have. I've had ESPN Plus for over 6 months, and it is well worth the $4.99 a month. You get access to live games, Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, NHL. You get tons of college football, basketball, baseball, softball games. You get rugby, cricket, international basketball, and soccer, and you get access to all of the ESPN originals like 30 for 30s. So I use the ESPN app, ESPN Plus app, to watch a lot of soccer and baseball, and I really like it for the 30 for 30s and the 30 for 30 shorts. There are lots of MLB games on ESPN Plus, so if you don't want to pay for MLB TV, but you would like access to more games, then check out ESPN Plus. It's available on all of your supported devices. You see fewer commercials. That's nice. Again, it's $4.99 a month, a great deal. So go to ivnv.com/ESPN to sign up. You won't regret it. They have a 7-day free trial, and you can cancel anytime. Well worth the money. $4.99 a month. Go to ivmv.com/ESPN. So let's preview this upcoming Braves series down in Atlanta, and we'll start with the logical game 1.
So the first game.
I mean, do you guys want to start with game 3? I don't know.
We could. Let's just flip it all on its head. Game 1 is the Braves home opener. It's a 6:10 start, so Hendricks will be coming off his 4-year, $55.5 million extension, and hopefully that's a comfort to him and not pressure added. But my guess is that for Kyle, that you can't really add pressure. He doesn't believe in pressure, and this is his first start at SunTrust Park, which I guess is true of most people, considering the Braves build a new ballpark like every 5 or 6 years. And he'll face lefty Sean Newcomb, and this is his first start of the season. A few guys in the Cubs lineup have some nice numbers against Newcomb, particularly Almora, Javi, and KB, all hitting 400 plus, but that's less than 10 at bats. But still, so they've had some success there. Most of the Braves lineup hasn't faced Kyle. A lot of young guys there, but Nick Markakis stands out, hitting 455 against him in 11 at bats. So that's a guy they may want to kind of work around, just because some of the younger guys just haven't seen Kyle yet. So we'll see how that goes. But looking forward to the start.
I've always liked Nick Markakis' last name.
It's
got the Mar, it's got the cake, it's got the kiss.
The K's, and then he's got the K in the first name and the 2 K's, and
it comes up short of having 3 K's, which is ideal.
Sure, so. Yeah.
especially playing in Atlanta.
So game 2 then is going to be John Lester's second start of the season. The Cubs have an off day on Tuesday the 2nd, so this is another series that's broken up by an off day. But on Wednesday, it's John Lester versus Julio Teheran. And Teheran, he only went 5 in his opening day start versus the Phillies, and he surrendered 3 earned runs on 4 hits, and that included 1 home run. So I like the potency of the Cubs offense and what they've shown against Teheran. Coming up against Teheran, he did strike out 7, showed a lively fastball and slider in that game. But I like what the Cubs' potential for doing against this guy is. Brian Almora have both taken him deep, and Schwarber has done well against him in a small sample as well. Going back to Lester had sort of a vintage Lester of the last couple of years performance in the opener, giving up only 2 runs on a 2-run homer and going 6. So I guess if that's what he's going to do, then that's serviceable. It's especially serviceable if the Cubs bullpen gets on track. But there are 4 guys on the Braves who have had kind of larger sample size against Lester, and that includes Markakis, Inciarte, Tyler Flowers, and Freddie Freeman. And of those 4, all those guys have had 16 or more at bats versus Lester. Only Freeman has done any damage really to speak of at all. And Freeman's taken Lester deep twice. So that's the matchup to watch, is Lester versus Freeman. But otherwise, he's kind of mowed through a lot of these guys in the past.
So then on Thursday, the Cubs wrap up the series in Atlanta. That game is at 6:20 Central and will be broadcast on NBC Sports Chicago. And if you're out of market, you can watch it on the MLB network. The Cubs will be facing Max Fried, which is how I like my food and my Friday nights, Max Fried. Actually, I'm assuming it's pronounced Freed. I don't know. But he's maybe kind of like a Montgomery type, a lefty pitching in the rotation and out of the bullpen. He's already made a relief appearance this season. He pitched 1 inning on opening day. Primarily uses like a 4-seam fastball. Well, not like a 4-seam fastball. It is a 4-seam fastball and a curve. He occasionally mixes in a slider and a changeup. Fastball tops out at 94. He gets lots of swings and misses. Although he doesn't have a lot of movement on his fastball. So batters are hitting 216 off that fastball compared to 308 off his curveball. And he gets a lot of, surprising number of swings and misses low on that curveball. But So he really just kind of uses those two pitches. He has like a couple others that he uses infrequently. And the Cubs have faced him, but very few times. Zobrist and Almora have 3 at bats, and that's the most on the entire team. So not really worth talking about there. Yu Darvish will likely take the mound for the Cubs, and I'm not even going to get into the history Darvish's history against any Braves hitters or anything because I think we're just in a completely different realm with Yu Darvish, and I think that this game is important for Darvish, and if he has another rough outing, I think that I just feel like the ugliness is going to be unbearable. So I'm really hoping for a strong performance from Darvish on Thursday.
Yeah.
God help us. I hope so.
Oh boy, it could get real ugly.
I know. Yeah. This episode was like far more enjoyable than I expected.
There's a lot of early optimism, I think, that's just tamping down the anger.
Yeah, if we would have recorded an hour earlier, well, I don't know if I could have put together a coherent sentence. So I needed this. And hopefully, like, this was kind of like a therapy session for me. So I hope it's the case for everyone listening that's upset about what we saw this week, because, man, it was frustrating. But so let's end the episode with a segment we call Ivy Miscellany, where we share other things that we're into. Kurt, what are you into right now?
So yeah, you guys have kind of both shared how much you're into watching soccer, and I haven't quite gotten into that yet. But I've gotten into play now that the weather's warming. I'm playing a lot of soccer with my 7-year-old, and I'm bringing it up because we're American boys of the '80s, and we played baseball and basketball and football, whatever. And I never played soccer, and I'm really horrible at it, and it's super humbling to like.
I just assume I would be good.
Play.
I've never tried.
Oh gosh, well,
What's hard about it?
If I didn't outweigh him by 4 times his body weight, I think he could just dominate me. But I'm able to. I can't quite let him beat me all the time, but his skills wise, he is way better than me, and that's a little bit troubling for me as a father. So yeah, I just knock him around a little bit and put him in his place. But really, it's just fun. It's fun to play a sport that you just don't really know how to do, and I'm learning at the same pace he is, and I think that's super cool.
That was like playing.
Yeah, just make sure to foul him with what would be the equivalent of a red card every once in a while, just to kind of put him in his place. That's your job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I gotta echo that, man. I love playing soccer with my son too. And over the winter, we have one of those soft, like, IKEA soccer balls that we kick around in the basement, and so just having the warm weather to get out there and play is pretty awesome. And I don't mean to brag, but I could probably juggle a ball at least 5 times.
Oh gosh, I could juggle a ball one time. Yeah, if getting it off the ground isn't a prerequisite for qualifying as juggling, I can do one. How good I am at soccer.
We should get our kids together to play soccer, because I feel like our youngest, she's really interested in it. She wanted to play this year, but she's also really into drama, and she got a part in a local play that seems really interesting, and we're excited about her being in that. And so I was like, I don't know, and I don't know. Her grades her grades aren't very good, so I was like, I don't know. We need to not do everything.
Soccer's the perfect sport because you can combine athletics and drama.
That's true.
Somebody slide tackles you just writhe on the ground for a while, and you can practice.
She really wanted to play, but we needed. Yeah, we weren't going to be able to do it with practices and everything. So, but anyways, I feel like she would be pretty good at it, and so. And she's really never played it, and she's talked about wanting to play. So I think it'd be fun to get our kids together.
Yeah, it is fun. And 7-year-old soccer is the best too, because it's like small goals, no goalie. It's the small field. It's just kids running around,
right?
Shooting, just shot. It's awesome. So it's like soccer on steroids.
Andy.
Yeah, so normally I like to have something cool to talk about here, but I don't have anything cool to talk about. But I have been trying to watch watched the calories, lately, and one thing I've liked eating is low calorie popcorn options. Get
Oh
yourself
yeah.
some low calorie popcorn options. There's Smart Food Delight makes some popcorn that it's like 35 calories a cup, and get some of that in your body. It's a good way to kind of feel like you're having a good snack and not really um, being too heavy on calorie wise. So
I eat
What's
popcorn
a
almost
high
every night.
calorie popcorn?
Like
I don't know. I mean,
like
maybe
butter,
like
heavy butter,
yeah,
Uh,
I don't know, heavy butter stuff. I don't know
caramel
honestly,
corn.
but I just know maybe popcorn in general is a good choice.
I
But
eat probably usually a bag of popcorn every night.
oh my gosh.
Sometimes I split it with Tawny. I get like the
like
fat
a
free.
huge regular chip size bag.
Well, I don't know. I mean the microwave popcorn, and then it's like a I mean sometimes I split it with Tawny, but we get the fat free kind, so I assume it's healthier. But and then sometimes I follow it up with a little bowl of ice cream.
Good for me. I just ate popcorn. I like the
Sprinkle a little ice
popcorn.
cream on
I
top.
like the popcorn is classified as fat free, like it ever had fat in it.
Well, butter does,
Oh sure. But,
I don't
oh,
know.
man.
Just get yourself some popcorn.
I'm one of those. I'm one of those
Maybe my
strange.
worst
I'm a strange
suggestion
person
ever.
who like
No, it's
I eat popcorn if it's there, but I never eat popcorn. Just like, oh, I'm gonna go make some popcorn.
oh no, we go through it like crazy.
Oh man, yeah, not
Yeah.
me.
Okay, so my Ivy miscellany. First, I mentioned it already a couple times, but I was in Cincinnati for the FC Cincinnati match. It was my first soccer match. This is like a soccer themed Ivy miscellany. I had so much fun. It was miserable. The weather was insane. It just awful. But I had a lot of fun. We made it to the half before. Like, I don't know. I'd like to say that the kids were the reason that we left at the half, but I was ready. It was miserable. It was so cold and wet, but I really enjoyed it. I had so much fun. I can't wait to go back, for a better weather day. So, just because we've mentioned it a couple times here in the last couple months, I had a lot of fun. So, definitely looking forward to going to more soccer games here this year. But my other one, I had one and now I forgot it. Oh, I know what it is. It's a repeat. It's a repeat from last year. And I think I said this last year at about this time. But so I coach softball, youth softball, and I coach 14U this season. I am the president of our local baseball association. So I'm in charge of everything involving the field, all the teams, the concession stand, everything. And I just want to say, like, if you're a parent and you have kids who play sports, like just volunteer to do something because it is a lot of work to make these things run. And even if you think like, oh no, there's people who do that, just volunteer because it makes a huge difference, and I promise you, it's appreciated by anyone that you're helping. And you know what, and two, like if you don't have kids that play youth sports and it's something that you would like to just kind of get involved with or help in some way and help your community, like there are a lot of people who are giving up their time, and it's not like I'm not venting or anything because I actually do have help this year, and it's amazing how great it is to have people who are willing to help. And so if you want to help out your community, just figure out who does it and offer to do anything. Anything helps. And so that's my PSA for this episode.
Yeah, and I did it. I assistant coached T-ball last year, and it was far more rewarding than I had even expected. So I'll second your recommendation.
Yeah, it's it's fun. I love coaching. Are you coaching this year?
I'm not. Well, for reasons that I won't go into, but our city farms it out to after T-ball, they farm it out to an organization, and
Oh.
so I may volunteer, but I don't know what capacity that is.
Yeah. Yeah. And even and too, like even if you have a kid who plays, ask the coach if there's anything, like, I don't know, just somebody to like play catch with the kids or something like that. It makes a huge difference, and it makes you feel good too. It's spring. It's nice to get outside. So I don't know, volunteer.
Well, he's playing soccer in the spring, so.
Oh yeah. So, all right. Well, that will do it for this episode, and it was brought to you by all of our Patreon supporters. We have a couple new contributors to thank this week. Jeffrey in Marietta, Georgia, comes in at a Hall of Fame level, and here's my Marietta, Georgia fun fact. In the 1850s, Marietta was essentially destroyed by fire 3 times in a decade. So it was a different time. I don't know what year was the Chicago fire. It was around in there, wasn't it?
Early 1900s, right?
I don't know. We don't live in Chicago, so it's okay for us to not know those things.
It's one of the stars on the flag. We should know.
Right. And it's fitting that the Cubs are headed to Atlanta, which is close to Marietta. And also, Marietta is the hometown of Braves first baseman Dansby Swanson.
Oh, man, that name, Dansby.
Yeah. And we want to thank Matthew from Lafayette, Indiana. And here's my Lafayette fun fact. It is the hometown of former Cub Clayton Richard. So, yeah.
All right, fun.
Yeah, it's a fun fact.
The Chicago fire was in 1871, so.
Yeah. Well, split the difference, I guess. So thank you to Jeffrey and Matthew. And if you enjoy our podcast and you'd like to support it and become part of the IVMV team, you can go to patreon.com/IVMV. Patreon helps us keep this thing going. Patreon support is why we do 2 episodes a week during the season. One of our contribution goals was a second episode a week, and we reached that a few years ago. So that's why we do 2 a week. So thank you to everyone who supports us on Patreon. And again, go to patreon.com/IVMV, patreon.com/IVMV, or go to IVMV.com and click on support the podcast. So thank you for downloading and listening. And until next time, go Cubs. And go get Kimbrel.